I am Roger Collier. I'm Interim Dean of the College of Business and Technology. It's my pleasure to welcome you and to have the opportunity to welcome our speaker. Before that, a little background on the lecture series. The series was established in 2002 by two distinguished physicians, Dr. Harold Battenfield, orthopedic surgeon holding 4 patents, and his wife Mary, who are here this morning. Please stand and be recognized. Also, Dr. John Carletti and his wife Janice, who unfortunately are not with us this morning, but I think they deserve a round of applause as well. Today's lecture is a first, right? This is the first time that the speaker actually was an audience member for one of the lectures when he was a student at NSU. Our speaker is Trae Ratliff. Trae was born and raised in Tahlequah, got his bachelor's degree in business in spring of 2003. His major was in entrepreneurship. At the time, that was a new program for us here at NSU. He was vice president of the Entrepreneur Club, recipient of the NSU Student Entrepreneur Award in 2004, and a place kicker for the NSU football team. He now owns and operates the Lost Pines Ranch, is a local insurance agent for Shelter Insurance, member of this year's Tahlequah leadership class. Please help me join in welcoming Trae Ratliff.
Thank you. All right, well, this isn't as bad as I thought it would be. You know, there's only 100 of you or so. I was expected 2, 3, 4. Gosh, the bigger the number gets, the more nervous I get. So if I get sweaty and look like a glazed donut up here, don't worry about that. I was in these seats 9 years ago, I guess, for the first Distinguished Entrepreneur Lectureship Series, and kind of excited and, to be honest, a little bit surprised that they attached this word to my name. Along with this, because we're not really going to do any of this either. This isn't going to be a lecture. I'm just going to sit here and, I'm going to talk to you guys and kind of give you a little bit of background, kind of the experience and the things that I've done in the last 10 years and how that relates to you and how these stories and what you can kind of expect between now and the next 10 years instead of, some of the previous speakers that, would be more of a 25, 30-year outlook. So it's not a story of wealth and prosperity. I'm not distinguished. I'm not rich and famous. You guys probably have more in your bank accounts than I do right now. That's just, that's the story of life. But I was just a regular student athlete. It was nothing special. I wasn't a 4.0. I wasn't on the dean's honor roll. I was just a regular student. Just wake up, wash off the hangover, go to class, and try to stay awake just like the rest of you. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about college, and I know how hard it is to dig into it and to really distinguish whether or not you're here to get a degree. Are you here just to get that piece of paper so you can walk across the stage? Or are you really here to get an education? Because I think that the difference in those two subjects is pretty drastic. It takes a few years and it takes some time out in the workplace to try to realize, I'm pretty sure I covered that in my marketing class, or I'm pretty sure I know Dr. Phillips talked about this at one point. So, I think that's the hard part about sitting in that classroom and about reading through the chapters, and instead of just skipping back to the summary and try to memorize the stuff so that you can take the quiz and pass the quiz versus trying to absorb some of it and try to take some of that stuff in. Another thing I want to talk to you guys about is goals. You're really not ever going to have a better opportunity in your life to sit back. Most of you probably don't have kids. Most of you probably aren't married. Most of you probably don't know what you're going to do or where this path is going to lead you to. So take a look. Take a look at what the future holds for you, because once you walk across the stage, once you start to apply for these jobs, and once you start to get into these interview processes and start to try to figure out what path you want to go down, it's too late. You really have to sit back and say, where do I want to go from here? What is it that I really want to accomplish? What is it that I see myself doing? So take some time while you're here and don't necessarily rush into it. Don't be in such a hurry to, I know how it gets. You just, I just want to be done. I want to finish this thing. But in reality, these are the best years of your life. I mean, this is, there's not anybody on this front row that wouldn't happily try to start over and knowing what they know now. Of course, that's the key phrase. Knowing what I know now, I would love to be back in those shoes. So that makes it a little bit difficult. But college is like a toolbox. Okay, you're going to carry this toolbox with you throughout life. Every job that you have, every business venture that you attempt or do, it's so much that's going to relate back to what did I learn, what did I absorb while I was in college, and am I able to reach into my toolbox and pull that particular thing out and use it and apply it? Because so many of the textbooks, so many of the classes, so much of the coursework is, am I really ever going to use this? Is this something that I'm ever going to, what is this crap? It's hard because, you go through high school and now you're in college and it's like, what's applicable? Am I really ever going to use this? Well, you never know. So that's the thing, is try to absorb some of it and try to learn, keyword learn, instead of memorize, okay? So I'll tell you a little bit about my story. I was a bartender at Neds, nothing special. I worked down there for a couple of years, and I guess you guys know where Neds is. Anybody? Okay. Neds. The thing about I was a bartender down there, and the thing about it that was interesting to me was the place is always packed. It's been there for 25 years. There's always 100 college kids in there. You go out on occasion as a bartender to get some fresh air. And you look up and down Main Street, and Main Street was, Main Street's just car, all the, from one stoplight at Downing all the way down to, where the branch is now. At 3 o'clock, after we close everything out and you go out to get in your car, well, there were no cars. The only cars that were left in the parking lot at that point were mine and the other bartenders, and it really makes you wonder, because I don't remember serving any only Coca-Cola or, can I get a water? There wasn't a whole lot of that going on, so it makes you wonder how many of those people in the bar were actually sober or having a beer or two and staying under the legal limit to drive home. So I came up with this thing, which I didn't have a name for it, but I had a plan. And this particular plan, these are some pages out of my business plan that Dr. Murphy's class. That was kind of his whole class project. Come up with an idea, devise and develop a business plan, and it was kind of one of those classes you like because you only go to class if you have some questions about it or if you want to brainstorm. So attendance was, maybe I go, maybe I don't. But some of the things that I thought were interesting about some of the statistics and some of the information I did. If you look on this, the column there, it says 1999, NSU enrollment, 8,121 students. DUIs in Tahlequah, that's within the city limits, 242. You scoot over to 2002, and there's a 66% increase in the amount of DUIs from 1999 to 2002, where it's 377. So you're looking at better than a DUI a day. I thought that was an astronomical number, especially considering how many of those vehicles on a daily basis were down at Neds or downtown for some other reason, or parties, whatever it may be, and there really was no solution. There wasn't taxi cab service. You can only rely on your friends so many times to come and pick you up and to save you. So I came up with this business plan. We submitted the business plan, Dr. Murphy, and in the class, and we all discussed it, and it seemed to make sense. It wasn't something that I was overly excited about, but and then it kind of led into the rats bus, and yeah, thanks. And so the Rats bus was just kind of, I don't know, are you guys at all familiar with the Rats bus? Man, obviously a few of you are. Just come with me. Has anybody else ridden the bus? Yes, I recognize you. So, so here's just kind of this is, I don't know how, you guys got the volume right on this thing. So here's just kind of this is. Try to count them. Anyways, so summer. This was that course. Dr. Murphy's course was in the spring of 2003. It was the year that I graduated. I graduated in May of 2003, and a lot like you guys. I didn't know what route I was going to go. I didn't really have a plan. I didn't really have a path. It was just kind of now what? So you apply for some jobs. You kind of got some stuff in the basket that you're thinking about. Not really sure what direction I want to go. But and so this thing, my mom calls me and she says, "Hey, there's a bus, one of these old NSU buses up here that's getting auctioned off." And I said, and I had my business plan. And I thought, this thing, let's give it a try. So show up and Mom says, "I got this for you." So she bought me an $1,800 bus. It was a piece of crap. But so at that point you buy a bus, and okay, now does that make me an entrepreneur? Am I an entrepreneur now because I have is this a business? So we started doing things. The picture that you saw there earlier with the logo, and we started putting logos on the bus and started selling outdoor signage on the bus to liquor stores and local bars and bail bondsmen and things that were the same, had the same demographic as what we did. And you get some insurance on the bus. You try to and then you get the phone. You get the phone and you turn it on, and I hung these things up all over campus. Take a ride on the safe side. And Rats opens in the fall of 2003. And here's another short clip. This is a little rowdy.
Go Rats! Camera! Go Rats!
So, Rats was entertaining to say the least. Okay, but. Business was good. I think that one of the things that for me was the business plan wasn't anything that was going to blow your socks off. It wasn't something that I knew my sales weren't going to be $200,000 a year. I knew I wasn't going to make $50,000 a year on this thing. But at the same time, I thought, I can be in business for myself. I can go through this process, and I can probably make about the same or maybe a little bit more than what I was making at my previous job. The risk is a little bit higher, the liability is a little bit higher, but at the same time, it went really well. And so we operated for a full year in the fall of 2003, in the spring of 2004, and everything looked good. I had a driver, one of my drivers. He had got a job in Stillwater working as a pest guy, and his other roommates, the two of them were moving together. One of them was my mechanic, and one of them was my driver. And so we started the Rats migration, I think is what we called it. So we had a bus running here in Tahlequah. I had a driver here in town, and we had the two buses. We bought two new buses, drove to Atlanta, got them for their airport shuttle buses, picked them up at Atlanta International Airport or whatever it's called, and drove them from Atlanta to Stillwater. Same thing, same process, decals, marketing on campus, put stuff, articles in essentially what was the Northeastern in Stillwater, and just kind of talk to them about in the community and kind of get the buzz going. It's just a small, college town, a little bit, obviously quite a bit bigger than NSU, but same demographic, same kids, same problems. And so we felt, we had one bus in Tahlequah running, We had 2 buses running in Stillwater, and things, and things went really well. The thing about the RATS bus was my philosophy, and this is, it's not really something you can put into a business plan, but I felt like RATS had what I call the home run factor. Okay, that home run factor is essentially something that's going to really make this thing explode, franchise out, whatever you want to call it, because every college town in America, it doesn't matter if you go to Norman or Stillwater or Tahlequah or Columbia, Missouri to Mizzou or Manhattan, Kansas, it's the same demographic. I mean, essentially, you've got the same problem. You've got kids that are going to do the fraternity thing and the sorority thing, and they're going to, they're going to go party, and it's that's part of college. That's part of the college experience. And I really felt like I had something that was potentially going to minimize. I mean, you can't fix the overall problem, but something that was going to minimize how many people are out there on the road. Okay, and my home run factor was this. I had an idea of, and you guys now have this at NSU, you didn't back in 2003, but on the back of your student ID cards is a magnetic strip. And my philosophy was, well, if somebody can step onto the bus, swipe their card, and go on about their business, and that thing comes out just like it would like a meal at the cafeteria or at the Colvin Center at OSU, which is essentially the fitness center, buying your books, the same concept. That's really what I was looking for, is if you can just get on and swipe the card and carry on about your business, then you don't have to pull money out of your wallet, because I know you guys, most people then and now, don't carry $5, $10, $15 in their wallet. It's just they use that money for other stuff once they get to the bar. So the home run factor, that was part one. The part two of my home run factor was, well, if we can't come up with a system that's going to allow us to put it into that magnetic strip, then why not just, put it in as a little hidden fee into their tuition, where those, because I don't know if you guys have ever looked at what your costs are. They charge you for parking. They charge you for your, book fee or a catering. I mean, there's all kinds of just little hidden costs. That's all I wanted. I said, well, why can't I just put $5, if I can slide $5 in there per student, per semester, and then we'll let everybody ride free. I mean, you do the math, you got 25,000 kids at Stillwater, you figure in a $5 cost per semester, 2 semesters, that's $250,000. A $250,000 budget would allow me to put a little money in my pocket, get a set up system where I've got some drivers going, get a few more buses, and then, and then my bus drivers could make some tips in addition. So I felt like that budgeting system would have worked, okay? No go. That's federal money. It's not really something that that it's extremely hard to get in on that federal money. I mean, this stuff, same money that your Pell and your OTAG and all that stuff is just it's so guarded that essentially Stillwater or OSU or NSU would have to own my business and operate it as they see fit, which kind of takes away from the glitz and the glamour of the whole thing. So, and I had some other options. I approached Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I approached Pepsi and Coca-Cola and Red Bull and Budweiser, trying to get them not necessarily not to that effect, but if nothing else, if they could put Budweiser on the side of the bus and pay me $50,000 a year for that one specific advertising mode, then maybe they would see the value in that. Well, that they didn't really like that idea either. So the thing kind of just slowly but surely. Sorry about that. That's the. So if you listen to what this guy says, I think that this pretty much sums it up in a nutshell. But there's some background noise. Never mind the music, but I felt like this clip and what this guy says really hit home with me at this point after running RATS for 2 years of what this whole thing.
Why'd you take the next job?
It's tough to hear, but he says, do you like driving drunk people around? And I said, nope. And he says, well, why'd you take the RATS job? And so I think that that's something to think about, as you guys progress, and whether you decide to start your own business or whether you decide to, to go into these jobs. Don't you better like what you're going to do, okay? If you have an idea, I mean, just because you have a home run factor or you have a certain niche or something that you're going to fill or maybe a unique idea that nobody's thought of and really pursued, it doesn't mean that you're going to like it. And so we kind of came to a head at the spring of 2005. The insurance was due, the house that we were renting, the lease was coming due, and it was really kind of sink or swim. You know, is this something, because in the end, I mean, I could make more money with a regular job. I didn't have the liability issues. I didn't have to put up with drunk idiots all the time. You know, there was just really, you kind of just have to weigh the thing and say, well, is this something that I want to do for the rest of my life, or is it time to close this chapter and move on? So that's what I started to do, was basically turn everything off. You know, you start canceling the insurance on the buses, you start to, you know, tell your landlord you're moving out. And one of the things that led to the next chapter in my life was canceling my Yellow Page ad. I called my sales rep and I said, look, the thing is done, and she wants to know why and so on. And so I told her, and she said, hey, she says, well, why don't you come and interview with us? And I said, okay. So I went down there, and they basically just hired me on the spot. And this was a company called Yellowbook. So I'll throw this clip in here for you.
We need more customers. So, what? Advertise?
Ask the ad guru.
The first path, Yellowbook.
Excellent. Yellowbook. But what about the internet?
The second path, Yellowbook.com.
What if people look on search engines?
The third path, trust Yellowbook to place your ad on powerful search engines across the internet. The path begins with Yellowbook.
Business is off the charts. Wherever you look, Yellowbook.
So let me tell you guys a little bit about this company. This isn't really an entrepreneurial venture. This isn't something that, you know, but the thing I learned from this company was, first of all, you're talking to if you've ever opened a phone book, which a lot of you probably haven't now, but cover to cover, you're talking about small business owners. So many small business owners, entrepreneurs, all these ideas and all these things that have kind of evolved into their own business. Now, most businesses start out with, I work for ABC Company don't know what the heck he's doing, and so I think I can do something better than he can, so I'm going to start my own business. That's how a lot of businesses start. And they're more than happy to tell you about how that whole progression took place. But I think that was something that really struck home with me was, what is it, that these business owners are doing that makes them, a lot of them aren't happy. A lot of them are doing it and they're chasing a dream, and it seems like so many entrepreneurs chase this dream, but at the same time, they're really not content. They're really not content with what it is that they do on a daily basis. Now don't get me wrong, Yellowbook, I worked there for 5 years. I was in the sales arena, and then I got promoted to a sales manager. We traveled. I got to go to Milwaukee and Chicago and St. Louis and Dallas, and I went to Lambeau Field and watched a Green Bay game. You stay in the nice, fancy, plush hotels, and you kind of act like a bigwig even though you're not. But it was fun, and it was a great experience. And a lot of you guys are going to be faced with that position. Not necessarily, okay, I'm going to graduate college and start my own business. That's usually not the way that it goes. It's just, so at this point, this is kind of where you guys are now, of getting ready to finish college and take that next step. So I would suggest, even though the Yellow Page business is dying, they are moving into, there's a huge media shift from going from the print side of Yellow Pages to like the commercial was talking about. You've got the Yellowbook.com, you've got the search engine marketing, search engine optimization, they've partnered with Microsoft recently. Yellowbook has, the stock price has bottomed out, but regardless, it's something there. Essentially, is what they're trying to do is they're trying to leverage their position in front of these small business owners to put a different spin on it, so that they can talk about, I'm your one-stop shop for advertising. You can buy your search engine. I will build your website for you. I'll put you in the phone book. I'll put you on Yellowbook.com. I'll put your website at the top of the search engines. I'll do some mail out stuff for you. They're probably getting into commercials. So it's something they're trying to use their position in front of thousands and thousands of customers to say, look, I'll take care of everything for you. You deal with me. I'm your guy or I'm your gal. So that's something if you guys really are looking to see, you want to make some money, I'll give you a reference. We'll get you a job. All right. So this leads to my next path, because meeting with all these business owners and meeting with so many people, it really made me scratch my head, because I knew I didn't like traveling. I know, we got to go to some fancy places, but at the same time, there's so many of these places that are just hell on earth. I don't want to be stuck in Independence for not another day in my life. Independence, Kansas, Coffeyville, Kansas, Great Bend, Kansas, Oklahoma City. I don't even like Tulsa. So I tried to take a look and say, what can I do? What do I see myself doing? All these business owners, what is it that I really want to do? And so that kind of led me to this.
What should we do?
Better call our shelter agent.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, you got a sec?
Oh, yeah, sure.
We know what the weather is like in your area because we live in your area. Shelter insurance. For your auto, home, and life. We're your shield. We're your shelter.
Okay, now I'm not going to sit here and bore you guys with, what do you know about your car insurance, and do you have renter's insurance, and, do you have life? I'm not, we're not here to talk about that. If you want to talk about that stuff, just come see me. But this part is trying to figure out where you are in life and what is it that you really see yourself doing. I mean, I'm good with dealing with people. I like helping people. I like talking to people. People like talking to me, and I try to do my best to explain this to my customers and to the people that come in my door. Most people don't know anything about their coverage. They don't know if, they don't care. They just, whatever's the cheapest. And just so you know, there is no such thing as full coverage. So the next time you call your agent, regardless of who they may be, if you bring up the term full coverage, he's going to look at the phone and go, all right, this guy doesn't have a clue. That's what the bank calls it. That's not what insurance agents call it, because you're never fully covered. But this industry, after meeting with so many business people and being in business for myself, this is what I realized. This is what I want to do. I mean, I feel like this is my calling. So it just led into a position came open. One of my customers for Yellowbook actually basically said, "Look, I'm leaving," whatever her story was, and I said, "Well, I think I might be able to fill your shoes." So and so that's what I did. So who are you as a college student? What is it? What skills do you have? What industry are you really familiar with? Do you kind of have an idea of where you want to go? Do you know what it is you see yourself doing 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now? What do you know about money, finances? I'm guessing, I'll give you my scenario. I worked at Neds. I think, my W-2 at the end of 2002, 2003 was a measly $6,000 or $7,000. I think I made more money with that refund check, with the refund check that comes back every semester than I did when I was actually, out in the work field. So that's something to consider, because those numbers get substantially larger once you leave, once you walk across the stage, you get a real job. Whether you start your own business or not, things start to change. Those numbers get larger. You're more responsible. You're more accountable. Do you have any of this? Management, supervisory skills? Is that something? And if so, where did you get them? I mean, is that you're running the kitchen at Chili's? You're the manager at Town Branch? You're all of that stuff is important, and all that stuff is going to come in later in life, because it's the same skill set. It's just maybe in a different industry. So keep that stuff in mind. Are you ready to be an entrepreneur? I don't know. I don't think I was. I mean, I had an idea. That's basically all I had, was an idea and a bus. And so we ran with it. And, did it work? Yeah, well, we gave like 18 or 20,000 rides in 2 years. I mean, you asked the people that wrote it, did it work? Well, yeah, sure. You asked me. It's like, well, it would have been nice to have a little more money in my pocket. But anyways, entrepreneurial advice, okay? I think one thing that's critical is trying to figure out how much you want to make as an entrepreneur. When you start that business plan and you say, I'm going to run this business, I'm going to put my butt on the line, I'm going to be the one that's taking the risk, assuming all the liability, running the show, I deserve to make some money off of this thing. So put that up at the top, okay? The other thing is entrepreneurs have vision. Entrepreneurs, they see things in a different light, you know, and you will if you know you are. You're in business school and you're always looking at how you can kind of put your twist, your spin, kind of what can I do to make that better? Can I, just to give you a scenario, I look at the Redmond Studios. Do you know where the Redmond Studios are down here on Morgan Street? And God, I looked at those things for 10 years and I thought to myself, that is a jewel. That thing needs to be fixed up, remodeled, and rented out. Well, I didn't do it. Somebody else did, but that's the way that it goes. So think outside the box. You've got to use these ideas like the Redmond Studios or like the Rats Bus or like Facebook or whatever, however you want to compare it, and be able to think about what is it that I can do? What do I have that's something unique, that's something just a little bit different than the way everybody else has been doing it? One key to being an entrepreneur is fiscal responsibility, okay? If you don't know how to balance your checkbook, if you're simply log on to your Bank of America account, you look, I don't know, did I write any checks? Most of you guys probably don't write checks anyways. But in business, you have to be able to keep track of the numbers. There's got to be more money coming in than there is going out. That's fiscal responsibility. I personally I have my shelter agency and I'm responsible for 9 checkbooks and I write a lot of checks. That's just part of it. But establish some priorities, because even if you start your own business and even if you don't, if you take a job that doesn't necessarily coincide with what it is you want to accomplish, what it is you see yourself doing 10, 15, 20 years from now, then maybe it's not the right path. I sure didn't see myself driving a bunch of drunks around 20 or 30 years from now, so maybe I should have thought of that first. Okay? What I wish I would have known. Sales. How do I sell that home run to OSU? How do I sell that home run to Budweiser? How do I drive this thing home? I almost think that sales needs to be on the curriculum for all business schools, because so many of you, when you leave here, you go to your Indeeds and your Monsters and all these websites where these jobs are available. 80 and 90% of them are going to be sales. And yet you're going to leave college with this much sales experience, and they're going to ask you for this much. And so it's a quick learning curve, and there's a lot of things that are associated with sales in the world. Every mistake you make is going to cost you money. Not necessarily just in business, but in life. I dropped mustard on this tie, that cost me money. I don't replace the front end parts on my bus. I break down, it costs me money. Home runs in business are far and few between. I'm not saying don't count on them. I'm not saying they don't exist, but don't put all your eggs in that basket. This is true. I didn't know that was true. The more you make, the nicer your car is, the nicer your clothes are. You got a little money in your pocket, but at the same time, it just speeds everything up, and you really don't make any headway. I told myself, if I ever make any money, if I make $100,000 a year, shoot, I can live on 30. I'll put $70,000 a year back and invest it, and that didn't happen. Dr. Stephen Covey's time management matrix. This thing is so critical in life, and I'm sure if you guys have been through the coursework and you've at least heard of Dr. Stephen Covey, you have to figure out what's urgent and what's important, and those 2 keys. If it's urgent and it's important, it gets done first. If it's not really that urgent and it's not really that important, just keep it on the list. And that's another thing, is keep a list and break down that list. Open you up an Excel spreadsheet, categorize it by your class or your projects or your priorities, and Put on that list what it is that you see yourself doing. And then you'll be able to look and just scroll down that list and say, look, this is urgent, this is due tomorrow, and it's pretty important. So that's the next step that you take. Figure out what your biggest flaws are. If you don't know what your flaws are, then you don't know how to delegate those things out to somebody else that maybe has a strength in that area, okay? If you don't know how to take a look at yourself, because that's, a guy once told me, he said the 3 hardest things in life, the 3 hardest things in the world are steel, diamonds, and seeing yourself the way everybody else sees you, okay? Listening. Listening. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen, pay attention. That will take you further than anything else that I've probably said in this whole thing. If you can become a better listener and try to soak in some things, it'll help you through life. How do you measure success? Okay. How much money you got in your account? Is that what makes you successful? How much your net worth is that what makes you successful? Reaching the goals that you've set for yourself, I think that that's more likely to be a measurement of success. You set these goals, you reach a goal, that's success. Set another one. Set a big one and achieve it, okay? Then I've got one thing here I want to read to you guys real quick, okay, about attitude. I put this on my fridge, so I snagged it this morning. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on my life. Attitude to me is more important than the facts. Attitude to me is more important than the past, education, money, circumstances, failures, successes, and more important than what people think, say, or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, or a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding our attitude. We will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing that we can do is play on the one string that we have, and that is our attitude. I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you, and you are in charge of your attitude. So here's my final question. What are they going to say about you when this whole thing, college, careers, life, when it's all said and done on your obituary, is it going to say anything about a multi-billionaire or a business failure? It's not going to say anything about that. It's going to reach deeper than that. It's going to be who you are off the clock. Okay, so take that into consideration. Who are you? Find yourself. Take some time while you're here to realize what the most important things are, and then achieve those things slowly and steady. Any questions? Thank you.
Trae, your grandma and your mother were both small business owners.
Yes.
What was the best advice they gave you?
The best advice, I tell you, I grew up in a travel agency and a t-shirt store. Those two women are rocks. I wouldn't say that it's one thing that they taught me, but the lessons throughout life. Okay, life is a lesson, and it's not one single thing. It's every day, everything. So, yeah. Anybody else?
My name is Jordan Thompson. I'm from Tulsa, and my major is somewhere in business. I want to know what really inspired you to the entrepreneur that you are. Like, did it just come naturally, or Was it something you always wanted to do?
Well, you know, I think a lot of it goes back to my grandmother and my mom. You know, I love Tahlequah, and I've visited a lot of places in my life. My grandma was a travel agent. You know, I got to go a lot of places, but Tahlequah to me was always something that I knew that this is my community. This is from day one to the last day. That's where I wanted to be. And my meemaw and my mom, visiting their shops and hanging out and doing, you know, just a little kid running around, and while they're doing their business thing, that was more impactful to me, knowing that, you know, that was kind of how I was raised. As you know, my mom was an entrepreneur, my grandma was an entrepreneur. That's just kind of what I knew. I mean, I guess it would be the same thing if your dad was a professional athlete, or maybe he is. You know, what are you going to do? That's just what you grew up. You grow up, you know, lifting weights, and you grow up throwing a football or whatever. It's just kind of how the environment that you're raised in was probably the biggest. You know, the environment was probably the biggest key factor with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I know what you mean, because my parents both own their own businesses. At least one of them did.
Yeah.
And especially when the economy went bad, they were both out there, lost their jobs.
Yeah.
They just bounced right back, and that really inspires me to be in business.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you for answering the question.
Oh, thanks. This better be good, Meemaw.
It's not a question. I just want you to tell them what you do in your spare time. Well, not all of it, but...
Well, you know, and it says in this, you know, fancy thing that says distinguished and lectureship and all, you know, I enjoy, I grew up, my godparents are here. I enjoy cattle. I have a love for cattle. I have a love for, you know, just the whole cows and being on a tractor, and that's kind of that's my opposite of driving drunks around. That's my time to think. That's just what I enjoy doing, is operating my little ranch. So, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Mima.